Welcome to Universal Joint. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and my co-host Dustin Fuhs and I are recording this podcast on Saturday, March 6th, 2021. And we were just pre-gaming a little bit, get the show started. And Dustin, you're excited because you're going to get to leave the house?
Yeah, we're in what do they call it? Stay-at-home orders up here in Toronto, and by the time everyone hears this, I'm going to be able to leave the house and go and buy pants. We're heading out of stay-at-home into lockdown, a gray zone, and yeah, it'll be exciting to go and walk through a mall. Although it's going to be a little interesting to see which stores are going to make it back into existence after this. At least 100 days in lockdown, in stay-at-home. So it's going to be interesting.
Holy cow. Okay. Well, again, enjoy your sojourn. But we got a lot of news to cover. A lot of stuff has happened since we last recorded a new show, including word just this past week that work is resuming on Universal Orlando's fourth theme park, Epic Universe. We're going to talk about that ambitious project in the second half of this week's show, folks. But first, the news. And I want to tell you that the news portion of today's Universal Joint is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. For a worry-free travel experience, be sure and book online at storybookdestinations.com. And before we plunge into this week's show, Dustin, wanted to circle back to our last Universal Joint where we spoke at length about, the cut-down version of Wicked that was presented at Universal Japan from July of 2006 through January of 2011. And I shared a story as part of that show about how over the 4.5-year run of that show at that theme park, use of video cameras and recordings were supposedly strictly forbidden. But Universal Joint listener guy Eric Gonzalez prove me wrong. I don't. Did he send you the info on this, Dustin? How there's actually a YouTube video of the entire show, out there.
Within minutes of us posting the show, I had a couple of people on Twitter sending me a note, being like, "Oh, so here's the link," and I'm like, "Oh, why? Thank you. I appreciate that." And obviously, I got to dive deep into that recording because it was amazing.
Yeah. Now, what's kind of interesting is that it's dated July 16, 2006. So, and so this must be like within a week or so before, when the show started running at that park. And I wonder if the policy got put in place afterwards. Because, it's 34 minutes long. It's the entire, show as it was presented at Universal, Japan. And now, mind you, the Broadway version, that runs, 2 hours and 45 minutes with a 15-minute long intermission. So this is a fifth of what you get to see at the Gershwin Theater in New York, or what you used to get to see at the Gershwin Theater. In fact, what's interesting is the Broadway production of Wicked, along with all the other shows on Broadway, closed down a year ago this week, on March 12, 2020 to be exact. Interesting thing, though, there's talk just this week that what with the COVID vaccine and how a significant portion of the population has been inoculated, and New York City is now talking about reopening some of those theaters for what they're referring to as pop-up events. Some of them as soon as maybe next month. Now, mind you, limited capacity, just 33% to start, but it's a start.
It's a start, and I wish that, when you're looking at something as disruptive to the economy as the COVID-19 landscape and everything that's happened, I just find it heartwarming that not just people within, performing arts and Broadway and just everyone in general are going to get to go back to living their lives, not as normal, because obviously masks are still a thing, but when Broadway starts saying, "Hey, we'll have people come back," it's almost as good as, hockey games and sporting events. And as long as it's done safely, that's fine. But it'll be so long until you're comfortable in a packed house in a Broadway show. So I'm going to be interested to see how long it takes for that to happen.
No, I agree. I agree. But you mentioned sporting events, and what's interesting, again, the Broadway news broke 2 days ago. Just yesterday, on the other hand, word came out of California that Governor Newsom is going to allow some sports venues to start reopening on April 1st. But with that news came word that theme parks in California will also be able to open on April 1st. And we're talking Disneyland Park, California Adventure, and of course, Universal Studios Hollywood. Now, and these places have been shuttered for a full year. Now, mind you, again, you got to walk before you can run. The plan is, I guess, they start with 15% capacity. This is phase one of California's blueprint for a safer economy. And if we see no resurgence of the pandemic, and there is certainly a lot of concern right now, given I'm sure you've heard the news how Texas and I guess Mississippi have are fully open at this point, and are dropping their mask mandates, and it's just sort of like oh God, please don't let.
Well, and it's those variants that are going to pop back up, and I think we're at that point right now where the local economies are going to start to get into high gear quicker than the travel and tourism industries, but. I think, as you were saying, it's better to walk before you run. No, we don't have any news about Run Universal, but it's incredible to see that at least the parks in California are able to rehire at least a portion of their team members and cast members, and that it's not just starting on April 1st. They've actually started a little bit before that.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, both Universal and Disney were working on workarounds. In fact, what was it? Disney announced on February 24th it was going to do its Touch of Disney event, which was going to be held at California Adventure Park, starting on March 18th and run Thursdays through Mondays. Basically a food and merch event, right? No rides or attractions open. What was interesting was the pushback initially on the price point for this. I guess it was $75 a person. Mind you, it came with a $25, food card you could use at the event, and would run, and again, only Thursdays through Mondays, and ran from noon to 8 p.m. Originally scheduled only to run through April 5th, but due to popular demand for tickets, Touch of Disney has since been extended to April 19th. Not to be outdone, Thursday of this week, Universal Hollywood announces its own food and merch event, Taste of Universal. That's supposed to begin on March 12th, beating Disney out of the gate by a full week. On the other hand, only on weekends, Friday through Sunday, running 12 to 7 as opposed to Disney's 12 to 8. But gotta say, I'm kind of happy about the price point. The tickets for Taste of Universal are $44 plus tax for adults and $25 plus tax for kids 3 and 9. And those of you out there who have Universal annual seasonal passes, they get discounted admission. And the interesting thing is, with that, that $44, the $25, you get 5 free food and beverage choices. Kids get 3 choices. And for this event, Universal is going to be offering, 70 different food items, 30 of which are going to be new for the event. And kind of intriguing, they're going to be debuting as part of this the Minion Cafe, which is supposed to be a delicious new dining experience located adjacent to that theme park's Despicable Me Minion Mayhem ride on the upper lot. And they're supposed to be offering interesting fare. We have grilled cheese sandwiches with meatballs.
Okay.
We have chicken and bacon mac and cheese.
You had me at bacon.
Okay. And then Nutella banana pudding. And the other thing that's kind of intriguing about this is the Minion Cafe is going to be directly across the street from the Secret Life of Pets Off the Leash attraction. And what's also going to be open as part of this Taste of Universal is that attraction's gift shop, the pets store, and oh God, Dustin, it's so hard to imagine that this time last year, Universal was in the middle of press previews for that attraction, which was supposed to open, have its grand opening on March 27th, and what is it, 2 weeks before that, the park shuttered for what was only supposed to be a couple of weeks, and here we
Yeah,
are.
when you start going back and circling into what was supposed to happen last March, it's really interesting to kind of think about how the world has basically stopped in certain aspects. But it's
very
going to be
true.
interesting to see what's going to happen, with the next few weeks, with Universal basically saying, or with the California government saying, hey, you guys can start to open at a certain capacity. Do they bring Secret Life of Pets online for April 1st? Because I'm assuming that it's ready to go. So we'll see.
It's interesting you say that. In fact, we'll get to that in the Epic Universe part of the show, because remember that, out in Hollywood, one of the worst kept secrets on the planet is that the Universal Studios Hollywood version of Super Nintendo World, right? Not Super Nintendo Land. It's been under construction for the better part of a year on the lower lot, out behind Jurassic World. And, my understanding is that that's supposed to go live in the summer of 2022. But, that was always with the understanding that, well, first we get that year where attendance, at the park is driven by the fact that we've opened our, Secret Life of Pets off the leash attraction. And, that was what was going to be in the billboards, up and down the highways in LA. And that was what the TV campaign was going to be. And now, again, as you mentioned, the whole notion of, well, does that open April 1st? And if so, do you get I want to say the PR campaign was out there already for an attraction that didn't open. So do you do a new set of billboards, a new set of commercials?
Yeah, and do you keep it local? Do you go international? Because I know for us up here in Canada, that trip across the border is a little bit more complicated.
It is.
So, and that's same with our friends from the UK and all over the world. Basically, it's basically become this this mad dash to try and get everything ready at the local level. But internationally, we're not going to see anything travel related for such a long time. And hopefully, it comes back. But how do you start that conversation? So it'll be really interesting. I was actually just to circle back on the March time frame. It was interesting because just earlier this week, I got a notification from Facebook saying 2 years ago we announced that we were doing our first Universal joint experience in Universal Studios Orlando, and I was like, "Oh, it's amazing what 2 years have done."
Yeah, it's may you live in interesting times.
We do.
Okay. Well, anyway, we were talking about theme park stuff based on animated films made
Yes.
by Illuminations. Did you see where just yesterday Universal announced that they were pushing back the release date of Minions: The Rise of Gru back from July 2nd of this year all the way to July 1st of 2002?
And it's done. The movie is ready to go. They've just put it back a year.
Well, and also we should probably point out that as part of this announcement, they also revealed that Fast and Furious 9 also got pushed back, but only by a month. It was pushed back from May 28th to June 25th. And what was kind of intriguing about that is the way Universal explained it was that, here in North America, it's looking promising. There's this penetration with the vaccine, and theaters just opened in New York and L.A. But overseas, things are lagging a little bit, and and when it comes to the Fast and Furious films, they do particularly well overseas. So it was the whole notion of let's give them an extra month, because we want to put this out pretty much worldwide, in the same window of time. So piracy really isn't an issue. But the whole notion of if they're a month behind, let's push F9, a month, and just send it out there when everybody around the globe is ready to do it. Whereas Minions 2, in fact, that's another thing that's interesting is that here in North America, the film is being promoted as Minions: The Rise of Gru. Overseas, it's Minions 2. But the weird thing is, again, just as we were talking about the billboards and that sort of thing for A Secret Life of Pets, the ride, or it's going to be Off the Leash. Um, Last year during the Super Bowl on February 2nd, 2020, the very first 30-second ad for Minions aired. And then the full-length trailer dropped like 3 days later. So, yeah, you're right. This film is now finally done. Now, mind you, in March of last year, after the pandemic happened and Illuminations had to send all of its employees home, they had to admit that we can't finish the film and make our our July 2020 delivery date. So let's push this off by a year. But the weird part of it is that the toys were already in the distribution channels, and in fact, Drew and I were talking about this on fine tuning the other night, and he recalls going to like the supermarket, and it's like the Minions, the boxes of cereal that promoted Minions 2, or the limited edition Doritos, were all out on the shelves because again, they had been prepping for this film that was going to absolutely positively open in July of 2020.
Yep.
And what's kind of interesting is that in this case, in fact, I want to read a quote from Deadline, who, when they wrote about the Universal decision to push back Rise of Gru, it's like, Minions is the most profitable franchise for Universal. And the studio wanted to make sure that the picture's promotional partners were able to get cash in on the film. And the interesting thing is they pointed out that Minions to date, the franchise has sold 3.7 billion worth of tickets worldwide. And what was kind of interesting in the same article is they mentioned that the Fast and Furious films have made $5 billion to date. And it was interesting that, oh, wait a minute, that didn't you just say, didn't you say the Minions was your most profitable franchise? And it's like, well, yeah, I said profitable, not the highest grossing. That if you factor in what it costs to make the Fast and Furious films versus what it costs to make the Minion and the Despicable Me movies, there's quite a gap. And this is why, the Minions keep getting bigger and bigger presences in the theme parks. Yeah. April of 2017, Universal Studios Japan got its very own Minion Park area. And in fact, when Universal Studios Beijing, which, by the way, is still on track for a May of this year opening, it also has a Minion Land. And speaking of things that are supposed to open in May, is that what you're hearing about Velocicoaster?
I'm hearing a lot of things, not just from fans and fellow, podcasters and everyone in the parks, but also friends who are working for the company. Mm-hmm. We're hearing that they are going full steam ahead. Anyone who sees Instagram or Twitter, they can tell that the photos of the on-ride cars and everything like that, it's out there. BioReconstruct is out there constantly giving us amazing footage and photos from in the parks and from above. But it looks like not only do you have the in-park atmosphere, which is brilliant. A lot of the walls have come down. You've got signage. You've got Velocicoaster grand opening merchandise, shirts, tees, tumblers, plush, shot glasses, mugs, everything that you can imagine. It's all live.
I have to say that I saw the T-shirt with the. I guess it's a line from the original Jurassic World movie. It's like "Go faster," as in
Must go faster. Must go faster.
"Must go faster." Yes, get with it. And also, yeah, again, the footage
Yep.
that folks are capturing during the test and adjust. In fact, I don't know from what angle or how they're getting the shot of the on-ride footage of where you're basically being chased by
Yes.
a projected image of a velociraptor. Looks amazing.
Yeah. So what we're hearing is it's not going to be months. We've heard that it's within weeks.
Wow.
And that's something that obviously things can change. We're in a
Okay.
COVID pandemic world. But what we've seen is the fact that you have the testing of the cars going. They have at one point in time, we're seeing 4 trains on the track at any given point, which is a sign that that's kind of the limit that they're going to be going on incredibly busy days. We know that they have at least 5 trains, so one can swap in and out. But let's be honest, this is an attraction that will put people in Islands of Adventure right around the corner from Hagrid's, which still is having issues. And I don't know why, because it's been having issues since we were there. And before that, they're still not able to run at full capacity to the extent where even just as recently as yesterday, there were signs out front saying Hagrid's will be opening later today versus at the opening. So that'll be kind of interesting to see 2 giants going side by side with the Velocicoaster and Hagrid's. But yeah, the fact that they had grand opening merch, we've also seen some team member merchandise leak online. Thank you for that. Jealous, super jealous. But yeah, we're seeing that it's going to be different now. Alicia from Orlando Park Stop also noted that there's a rumor flying around about the locker situation, and so we'll see. Apparently, they're going to have lockers instead of outside the queue and having the numbers of just lines upon lines of lockers. They're actually going to be inside the queue, which will allow people to put their stuff in right before they get on the train and then grab it right before they get out, which will cut down on the amount of lockers as well as the time and stress. So that was kind of interesting to see that. Once again, I don't have the opportunity to get down to Florida, so I'm relying a lot on not just Alicia and BioReconstruct, but all of our friends in the parks. And I just want to be on this coaster. I really do. I am so jealous of everyone who gets to play in the photography and the video of this. And we are looking forward to it coming online fairly shortly.
And just a quick note here, me personal. I mean, when we were down there in 2019 for our Universal joint event, I think we at one point took the group down by the water to see the early construction that was going on, and the fact that they've gone from that line of yellow buoys that's supposed to trap the debris and when they're clearing the site and that sort of thing, to what's there now, which again, just a huge credit to the team at Universal Creative. It looks like it's always been there. The fact that it blends in as well as it does. I mean that that's the weird part with the folks at Universal. They are so good at placemaking. If you think about Skull Island, Reign of Kong, and how same thing, giant building rises up out of the ground. And now, between what horticulture is done and with signage, and it's just sort of like, well, yeah, of course, that was always there. It's like, no,
It was created from the ground up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're following over on Twitter, G_Prodigy, but he's one of the Universal creative folks.
Yes.
Amazing stuff. Amazing.
Yeah. And again, real credit to him and the team that, the coaster looks like it's going 90 miles an hour just when it's sitting there. In fact, and I love the detailing on like the front car where you could see the scratch where the raptor supposedly got at the car. So, but yeah,
and it'll be interesting. The other thing that we're hearing is the in queue attraction, which is kind of interesting to see that there could be an attraction within the attraction queue line, but it looks like there's going to be some opportunities to meet and greet with the Raptors.
Ooh.
I am very excited to see what will happen, but once again, there's a lot of things within Universal that we get excited about, and then, you know, when it shows up, who knows? Maybe something a little bit like our Epic Universe conversation coming up.
This is true. And speaking of which, folks, if you give us a moment here, run a few ads, we'll be back and chat about Epic Universe.
This episode is brought to you by Marqeta. When it comes to your payments provider, you can't afford to compromise. Marqeta's modern payment solutions flex with your business without the trade-offs. Stable and agile, secure and innovative, scalable and configurable. If they say you can't have it all, don't believe them. Your business demands more. Choose a payments provider that delivers more. Choose Marqeta. Visit marqeta.com/Spotify to learn more.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
Okay, and we're back. It's such a crazy news week. There's a couple of huge stories we haven't talked about yet. What was it? Yesterday, Universal Orlando, that Halloween Horror Night is back for 2021.
Yep.
In fact, what kind of interesting that this is being listed as the 30th anniversary of the event. So. I guess last year didn't happen. Was a bad dream. It
was 29.5.
Okay, there we go. Interesting that they've already announced that the Beetlejuice house that just sort of got teased over the Halloween weekend will be back. No mention whether or not Bride of Frankenstein Lives or Revenge of the Tooth Fairy will be coming back. But all right, so we've got dates for this thing.
September 3rd through until October 31st.
Okay, 42 days.
And
yep.
And it looks like over on the official Halloween Horror Nights Orlando Twitter page, they do have a video with Beetlejuice, and obviously starting out with It's Showtime. But yeah, it looks like, this is going to be a story to watch over the next few months, because we're still in pandemic world. So there's a good chance that the experience that they're going to be bringing in are going to take last year's lessons, which include the social distancing and making sure that everyone's safe, the performers and the guests. But the fact that they're planning this far out is exactly what we need. We need something to look forward to, and we all love thinking about what Halloween Horror Nights can be, and that's just going to be incredible.
Okay. Well, all right. Now, pivoting to the next bit of news, and in fact, what's been kind of interesting about this story is it started with an announcement from Dr. Seuss Enterprises that a decision had been made that 6 books that Dr. Seuss worked on, they were published as far back as the 40s and the 50s.
Yep.
They're no longer going to produce these books because of, I believe the language was hurtful images or get that sort of thing. And the interesting thing is
hurtful and wrong character portrayals.
Okay. And where this got kind of interesting is because at least 2 of the books, If I Ran the Zoo and To Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, do have representation in Seuss's Landing at Islands Adventure. The question then, I forget who it was who pivoted to Universal and asked, okay, so, Dr. Seuss Enterprises no longer published, these 6 books, 2 of which you feature in your park. What are you guys going to do about this? And Universal, I want to say, released a statement to the effect of they are reviewing the situation.
The official statement was Seuss Landing continues to be very popular with our guests, and we value our relationship with Seuss Enterprises. We've removed the books from our shelves, and as they have asked. And we'll be evaluating our in-part experience too, but our guests can plan on continuing to be able to enjoy their favorite experiences at Seuss Landing.
Now, where this is fascinating, if you were paying attention, you actually saw this controversy coming over the horizon. Back in June of 2017, the Dr. Seuss Museum opened in Springfield, Massachusetts. Springfield, Mass. Being Dr. Seuss's childhood a home. In fact, what's interesting is Mulberry Street. There is a Mulberry Street in Springfield, Mass. But in October of that same year, controversy erupted. As you went into the Dr. Seuss Museum, there was this mural that that was made up of characters that Seuss himself had created over the years, and among the characters was a stereotypical Chinese person from the 1930s. And, he had a pigtail and, was, carrying chopsticks. And there was considerable pushback at that point about, the fact that, well, how could you do this? Of all the images you had to choose from Dr. Seuss, you put this guy on the wall. And so museum apologized, agreed to redo the mural. And by January of 2018, that image was gone. But that was kind of the inciting event, in regard to this is what made Dr. Seuss Enterprises review all of the books and to determine, okay, these 6 books, we probably shouldn't publish these anymore. But, okay, here's the thing. Dr. Seuss himself, Theodore Geisel, dies in September of 1991. And he was very, very, very particular about, licensing his characters. For example, the How the Grinch Stole Christmas holiday special in December of '66, that only got made because Theodore Geisel was in the Army with Chuck Jones. And when Chuck went to him and pitched the idea of, we could do this as a holiday special, it's like, okay, I trust Chuck, we'll do that. Yep. And then it was another 6 years, or sorry, 5 years, before we got the next special, and the Cat in the Hat thing in '71. But again, it was but he dies in September of '91. His widow Audrey is left behind, and she decides, because there are so many people, because Geisel was so reluctant to license things, that there were all these knockoffs. There were all of these, plagiarized, Seuss characters out there. She said, I got to start licensing this stuff so we can protect it. So July of 1994, that's when she signs a license agreement with Universal for the Seuss's Landing project. And also, but again, remember, at this point, there's only the books and there's only the handful of animated specials that have been done for television. Now, if you think about it, we got the Grinch movie with Jim Carrey in 2000. Yeah. We got the Mike Myers Cat in the Hat movie in 2003.
Oh, don't remind me.
Sorry. We got the
It was such a bad movie.
yeah, but again, it's kind of like a car wreck. You can't take your eyes off of it sometimes. We got the Jim Carrey Horton movie in 2008. We got the Danny DeVito Lorax movie in 2012. The Benedict Cumberbatch Grinch movie in 2008. And you got to remember, Seuss's Landing opened in '99. None of these existed at that point. So now, and what's particularly interesting is if you're paying attention, there's a Cat in the Hat movie coming from J.J. Abrams in 2024, an animated film, which is supposed to be followed by a Thing 1 and Thing 2 movie in 2026. And then in 2027, they're going to do a feature-length film of Oh, the Places You'll Go. So I guess what I'm pointing out here is that, Yeah, I mean, I know there are people like, oh my God, cancel culture, and they're gonna pull out the, if I ran the zoo exhibit, at Seuss's Landing, or they're gonna pull the Mulberry Bookstore out, and it's like, but you have to remember that a lot of these films were actually made by Universal, and the fact that they don't yet have representation in the park, that from a Universal point of view, when you're trying to keep people interested in what is now, think about it. What was the last thing that got added to Seuss's Landing? The trolley, right?
Yeah.
And even that would, that was over 20 years ago. I don't know. It's one of these situations where, I get that people, oh my God, they're not going to publish these 6 books anymore, and they're going to make changes at Seuss's Landing. It's like, they're potentially going to update it. They're going to bring in more modern films. This is not a bad thing necessarily. So,
Yeah, and Universal, let's be honest, a lot of the dollars and cents that come from the theme parks, it's night and day compared to Disney. Universal is part of Comcast. There's a lot of moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're going to bring in something like this, it's going to be big. It's going to be over the top because they have the investment in the Orlando market to make it good. Because right up the street, we've got something that's coming in just a couple of short years that they're going to want to bring people down for. So it's the domino effect, but also the fact that improving Seuss Landing and the rest of Islands of Adventure, that's not a bad thing.
No.
I want to see that. I want to see something new going into, Kids Zone at the other park. I want to see all of these things happen.
It's interesting you say kids, because if you think about it, for example, there's that Green Eggs and Ham show that dropped on Netflix back in 2019. I want to say Michael Douglas is the voice of Sam I Am, I think. But, face it, there's a whole generation of kids who that's the Dr. Seuss characters that they know. And when they go to, that park, it's like, oh my God, the Green Eggs and Ham, restaurant, which is so rarely open these days. And likewise, the Sam I Am character and his companion, who walk around the park who don't look like necessarily the ones from the animated series.
Yeah. I think the big thing to keep in mind is that you're having 2 ginormous attractions open up in a matter of 3 years, which is Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, and you have Velocicoaster. Both of those require a walkway to get to. So if you're going to go to the right, you're going to go through Seuss Land. But if you're going through the left, you're going to go through Marvel Superhero Island and then around to King Kong. But there's a lot of opportunities within those 2 routes to update and retheme and bring in more dollars and cents, because both sides, Zeus is incredibly popular, but on the other side with Toon Lagoon, there's not a lot in there that's relatable to today's youth. So there's a lot of opportunity within that theme park that they're putting a lot of money into it. They're going to want to get some returns.
Well, and speaking of putting a lot of money into it, let's now pivot to Universal's Epic Universe. I have to ask, Dustin, when did you first learn about this project?
I've been hearing about the 3rd theme park or 4th theme park, depending on whether or not you think Volcano Bay is a theme park. I'm in the middle. Well, I heard rumors of them wanting to do something when I was working down there in like 2007, 2008, but things really kicked off in, just like everyone else, 2016, April.
Well, okay. Again, I'm the old fart, designated old fart on this show. So I date this story back a little further than that. I go back all the way back to September 1998, which is when Universal bought 2,000 acres from Lockheed Martin. And at that time, the plan was crazy. That they Universal, because again, they were looking at the 30,000 square acres that Disney had up the street, and they were like, look, if we're going to compete with Disney, let's compete with Disney. So at that time, on this 2,000-acre parcel, they had plans to build two 18-hole golf courses, 10,000 hotel rooms, 700 timeshares, and more than 2 million square feet of retail space, plus two theme parks.
Yep.
And again, this was going to be right across from the Orange County Convention Center, with the notion that that people finish, the idea is like dad goes to convention today and mom and the kids go, across the street to the park. But
sure,
here's the thing: Vivendi, the French media giant, which owned Universal at this time, was in serious financial difficulties in 2003. And you got to remember that Lockheed Martin, this was an aerospace company that used to test missiles on these 2,000 acres. And as Universal, at the folks at Vivendi, they're looking at this ambitious plan. Universal executive, or the folks at Creative are like, oh, by the way, we're going to need $25 million because it turns out there's some toxic metal and there's some solvents in the ground that maybe we don't want people to go to at the theme park. And it was the whole notion that, and here's Vivendi, and remember, this is 2003, so 9/11 has just happened, and and remember, there was a months, maybe as long as a year stretch where people were frightened to get on planes and weren't going to Orlando. And the folks at Vivendi, it's like, well, what if that happens again? And we're pouring all this money into these 2,000 acres, and we're spending $25 million just to get toxic metal out of the ground. Oh, no, we're not doing this. So Vivendi turns around and sells the property to a developer from Georgia in 2003. But now, 10 years later, that Vivendi is sold off Universal. It gets purchased by Comcast. Comcast is a company that likes the theme park business, so they want them to expand their Orlando operation. And as you mentioned, April of 2016, Universal finds out that a 475-acre chunk of what is now 1,800 acres. Evidently, the Georgia developer only sold off like 200 acres, and that, oddly enough, that was the Orange County Convention Center because they wanted to expand. But it's just sort of like, Universal finds that, this 275-acre chunk is on the market, and they pounce. They snag, they pay $130 million for it. And they dig out the old expansion plans. And so now, and in fact, you were just talking about Alicia Stella. We have to give her credit here because in January of 2019, there was a Comcast employee town hall meeting where these folks were shown the plans for what was then called Universal's Fantastic Worlds. And Alicia, God love her, I don't know how she got a hold of this stuff, but there was an informational leaflet at the meeting that she got all sorts of photos of and slides. In fact, I want to give her credit where credit was due. She was the first person to get the image out there of Super Nintendo World. But here's the interesting thing. Okay, so again, this is January 2019. In August 1st, 2019, Universe's Epic Universe officially gets announced. And we learned that this theme park in 2000...
And we were all on that live stream. We were watching what was, and if I remember correctly, the live stream didn't actually work.
But here's the interesting thing. Remember, Alicia actually has the shot of the documentation from this Comcast town hall, and very clearly on that material it says Universal's Fantastic Worlds. But here we are, some 8 months later, and now this property, this project is called Epic Universe. And the fascinating part of the story is supposedly it was Warner Brothers that objected to the Universal's Fantastic World name, arguing that by calling the Universal's fourth theme park in Orlando this name, it impinged on two Harry Potter related copyrights, The Wizarding World and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So, and because Universal, because it didn't want to disrupt its Harry Potter licensing agreement with Warner's, it's like, okay, we'll find a new name. So again, We get the project announced in August of 2019. That they're working away at that 750 acre site. Again, over time, that 475 acres, Universal was able to pick up additional chunks of land from other people around there and buffed it out to 750 acres. But again, as we keep mentioning on today's show, mid-March of 2019, COVID happens, and theme parks, the Universal Orlando Resort, closed at the end of the 15th, the end of that business day. But work continues for another 45 days or thereabouts.
Yeah, a month and a half.
Until finally, at that point, it becomes obvious that, like, wow, the parks are not going to, reopen soon.
Yeah, it's not the 2-week turnaround that everyone was saying. We're going to flatten the curve by everyone staying home for 2 weeks.
Yeah. In fact, it wasn't until June 5th that the two Universal parks in Orlando opened. And then, I want to say 7 or 8 weeks go by, and now here's NBC Universal CEO Jeff Shell, and he announces that the Parks and Resorts Division is pausing development of our Epic Universe project until the future becomes more certain. To translate what's going on here, one of the other things that Jeff revealed as part of this conference was that revenues coming out of the Universal theme parks had fallen off by 94%. And let's be honest here, part of that is also the complete closure of Universal Studios Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And the limited, I want to say at this point, what is it? Universal's only operating at 35% capacity?
Yeah. And that's something that's been coming up a lot recently is Universal Orlando hits capacity. And it's hitting it quicker and quicker because as the weather starts getting a little bit more, sunny, everyone wants to go. But if they're only sitting at 30 to 35% capacity, that's a little different than 100% capacity when Hagrid's was in full swing.
And again, that because of that, revenues off by 94%. Universal had to make some hard decisions. And in November of last year, they revealed that they were laying off 1,123 team members, of which included 373 members of the team that works at Universal Creative, the folks who actually design the Universal parks. And a few weeks later, on December 8th, Shell kind of elaborated on the decision and just said, we paused construction on Epic Universe because to put billions of dollars of capital in the ground when you have such uncertainty about when and how the theme park industry is going to come back, we just thought it wasn't prudent. So at the moment, we paused it and we're continuing to evaluate Epic Universe over time. At some point, we intend to build that park. And then, we jump ahead 3 months, and here's NBC Universal announcing that work is resuming on Universal Resorts Epic Universe Park. And for me, what's fascinating is who is part of this announcement. We have Brian L. Roberts, the chairman and CEO of Comcast. And he talks about how the restart of construction of Epic Universe is a terrific moment for our employees and for our theme park business in Florida. Next up is Tom Williams, the chairman and CTO of Parks and Resorts. And he, again, talks about excited, they are. And then finally, we have Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings chiming in, and he's thrilled because it means people getting back to work. And now, mind you, what's interesting is they kind of bury the lead here. It's like they say the restart will begin immediately, but it's going to take several months to reach full speed as Universal restaffs for the project and reassembles its vendor and contractor team. And they want to stress that the construction of the park is going to hundreds of jobs within Universal and thousands of jobs within Central Florida, and eventually when this park is fully open. There'll be 14,000 permanent jobs. But the downside is this 11 months that the project has been shut down is going to cost them. The opening date of Epic Universe now slides from 2023 to 2025. Now where this gets interesting, just to step back globally for a moment. Remember, this time last year, you and I were talking about, that we were seeing the images coming out of Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios Japan, and how the idea was that project was, Universal had deliberately built it so it would open the exact same summer that the Summer Olympic Games were being held in Tokyo, with the notion of, all of these tourists traveling to Japan, and we'll have this amazing thing, we'll have a killer summer. And
well, yeah, because a lot of people who have been to the Olympic Games, and we had it in Vancouver in 2010, a lot of folks, when you go to the Games is a closed experience. You have tickets, but then you have all these different conflicting events for people who aren't able to go to a specific, event. They'll go off property, or there'll be something else going on. But you're still in that area. You're in that geographical area. So might as well, for Universal's sake, we'll make sure that we give them a reason to come out here to Universal Studios Japan. It was brilliant until
again, COVID changed all that. First of all, Olympics in Tokyo get pushed off by a full year. November of last year, Universal announced that Super Nintendo World would open at Universal Studios Japan. They actually gave a physical date, the February 4th, 2021. But then in January, this opening gets delayed indefinitely after there's a third wave of COVID, and the Japanese government declares a state of emergency. Interesting, though, if you're an annual pass holder at Universal Studios Japan, you can, in fact, go into this part of the park, which remains in soft opening. Anyway, we talked at the top of the show about how the Hollywood version of Super Nintendo World is under construction, still slated to be the big draw at the Hollywood Park for 2022. Of course, the hope was that they'd be able to take the heat and excitement from the Hollywood opening and get people excited to go to Epic Universe to experience this very same land. In 2023, that's not going to happen now because that's pushed off to 2025. But interesting thing, there are folks who are taking advantage of this, and I just want to take a quick side trip here to talk about the Wizarding World area that was supposed to be built as part of Epic Universe. And the original plan, Dustin, was this was going to capitalize on the Fantastic Beast films. The notion was that, here, they had expanded the franchise to include this, what was eventually supposed to be a series of 5 films. So, we got our what is it? Our first Fantastic Beasts film in November 2016. We got the second one in November 2018. But that only did 75% of the box office that the first one did. So the folks at Waters got a little concerned. So
because usually it goes the other way. You have the first one, and then all of a sudden you do, double or triple, unless you're a franchise that needs a reboot. But yeah, it was interesting seeing this.
Yeah. So, and in fact, the scary part of it was that, I remember, talking with friends at Warner Brothers, and they were talking about how the Harry Potter train was coming into the station, with the part 2 of, the Deathly Hallows. And, there were a number of folks who actually went over to work at the DC universe because that was supposed to be the studio's next big franchise.
Yep.
And of course, that exploded. And so these people were so happy when, oh my God, we're going to do more Harry Potter movies. We're going to do Fantastic Beasts. So they initially announced it as a 3-film series, and they got so excited that they bumped it out to 5. But now, again, 2 doesn't do as well as they expected, so they push off. They figure, all right, we need to work a little harder, figure out what's going wrong here. So they push off the release of Fantastic Beasts 3 from November 2020 to November 2021. And they're supposed to begin production on March 16th of last year.
Oh, no.
There we go. All right, I don't need to explain what happened there. So they shut down production. Warner Brothers shut down production worldwide. They start up again September this year. They film for 1 day, and then Johnny Depp resigns from the franchise.
Yep.
In fact, Mads Mikkelsen is now going to be doing the road of Gellert Grindelwald. But, so now Fantastic Beasts Fantastic Beasts 3 moves from a November 12th, 2021 date to now it's going to be released in theaters July 15th, 2022. So 44 months will have gone by since Fantastic Beasts 2.
Yeah, and almost, 4, 6, almost 7 years since the first one came out. That's a long, time period for a movie to keep relevant and for the cast to also be in that mentality. Yeah,
and more to the point, if you think about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and, how we stayed involved because the films just kept coming and for this sort of lag time. Now, mind you, Universal Creative, not necessarily unhappy about this development because they were looking at the box office for the second Fantastic Beasts film, and they had an area for Epic Universe that was going to be tied to Fantastic Beasts. And, there's been some conversations now about, maybe we need to do something that Potter fans are a little more familiar with, a little more excited about going to see. And so, what I'm hearing is the Ministry of Magic now.
Yep.
But the other thing, frankly, that's concerning both Warner Brothers and Universal is I don't know if you've been following J.K. Rowling, and what she's been up to since December of 2019, but she's been, saying some fairly controversial things about transgender issues, which again is complicating things for Warner Brothers, which has 3 more Fantastic Beasts movies that it wants to get out the door, not to mention a Harry Potter TV series for HBO Max. In fact, literally, just this week, Thursday of this week, Warner Media CEO Jason Kilar is speaking at the Morgan Stanley Technical Media and Telecommunications Conference, and he says, hey, there's this little thing called Harry Potter, which is one of the most beloved franchises, and we're incredibly thankful to be partnered with J.K. Rowling, and so I would argue that that's a lot of fun. That's got a lot of potential, too. So, look, long story short, nobody's hitting the Harry Potter panic button just yet.
Yeah.
But the problem is that, just to be completely blunt here, J.K. Rowling's, is net worth at this point is in excess of $1 billion, which means who is in a position on this planet to go to her and say, hey, can you maybe not go on Twitter and talk about transgender stuff because you're turning off a certain percentage of the Harry Potter fans, which is, could result in lower box office numbers for any upcoming Harry Potter films, or for that matter, smaller souvenir sales at Hogsmeade Village and Diagon Alley. But again, Universal Creative, in a weird sort of way, is taking advantage of this. The whole notion of, we made a promise to Warner Brothers about Fantastic Beasts, and now maybe we don't necessarily have to do that. Maybe we can make a a smarter, more popular choice.
Well, yeah, because if you look at at Epic Universe, that was a concept that's been in the making for years and years and years at this point, because they don't make an announcement August 1st, 2019, without knowing exactly what was, planning on being in that way. That means 2 years before that, they were talking about stuff. So what was popular in 2017 compared to what's popular in now, 2025, yeah, things have changed.
Now, in a weird sort of way, COVID was kind of a break.
Yeah.
And, let's see where this goes from here. But, speaking of things that go, it's time for Justin. It's time for Dustin and I to go. But before we go, Dustin, where else can folks find you online?
Yeah, so I'm over at Steps to Magic. It's quiet right now, but once again, hopefully things will come back. We can go across the border and go and buy things again. I am so excited for this to just be all over. But stepstomagic.com, social media as well. Steps to Magic. I'm on Instagram at Dustin Fuhs at Steps to Magic. And you can hear me here anytime Jim and I want to talk about Universal stuff, which is getting pretty exciting.
Yes, it is. Again, just the fact that all of these stories broke in the last week to 10 days. It's like,
yeah, it was an incredible email chain. People were like, "What do you want? Do you want this one? Do you want this one? I forgot about this one. What about this one?" And it's exciting when we're not having to talk about people losing their jobs. Yes, so let's just keep maintain the momentum.
There we go. And speaking of keeping the momentum going, if you're looking for other stuff to listen to, we've got Disney Dish with Len Testo. We've got Marvelous Disney with Aaron Adams, the gentleman who edits a lot of the podcasts here. Just recorded a brand new Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor. Looking to record a new I Want That with Michelle Valladolid about Disney merch in the next day or so. And
we didn't even get to talk about the new Universal store that's opening up at City Walk. There's the teaser for the next episode.
There we go. All right. Which hopefully will be out in 2 weeks' time. Let's see. And somewhere in between there, I will finally get a new looking at Lucasfilm out the door. I've been spending too much time writing and not enough time recording. I'll get that done. Anyway, if you could do Dustin and I a favor, if you could head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and recommend Universal Joint. If you really like what you heard here, if you could head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, that would be helpful. You did tell us where we can follow you on social media, right, Dustin?
Yeah, and we're able to follow you on every social media. I'm waiting for your TikTok to be announced.
And no, nobody wants to see me on TikTok. I'm going to be 62 later this week. I'm entering the phase of my life where I should be officially putting the cardboard, the paper bag over my head. But all right. But Nancy wants me to remind you guys, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Jim Hill Media and on Facebook at Jim Hill Media News. And I guess that's it for now, folks. Look forward, to Dustin and I getting together and talking further about what else we get to see in regard to Velocicoaster, which again, you're hearing weeks, not months, right?
That's what I'm hearing.
Ooh, can't wait. Okay, we'll be back soon.